On the Wake Up Radio presents The Center with your host, DC Radical One.
Greetings, Black family, and welcome to On the Wake Up Radio. I am your host, DC Radical One, and you have entered the center. Shout out to our wonderful producer, Cindy Ashby. You can check us out on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, Podcast, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and now OTWTube.com. That's OTWTube.com. See, we have a lot of people already in the building. Greetings to 777-9311. BB48, and you got ripped off. BB48 to Sister Vanessa. Greetings to our wonderful producer. Long time no see. BB48 to Cam Slam. Peace family to Teku Brown. Greetings to Lord Vale. And greetings to Unique One Express. And I think I have everybody that I see thus far. Wanted to give people a little time to come in to the building. So today, we're going to discuss Judas and the Black Messiah and the ramifications of that movie and what I saw in between the movie, the underlying themes of the film and what I think took place and how it ended up where it was from where it probably started. Also, we'll take a little time out to discuss the latest on the assassination of Malcolm X. Some information was released a couple of days ago, and then there was a press conference featuring, of all people, Benjamin Crump. So we'll talk a little bit about that because these things are tangentially related. Peace and Black Power to Brother Patrick. And they follow a similar theme. So since we have plenty of people already in the building, let's just get right into it. If you give me a few seconds to send out another notification or two to people, and then we can begin properly. First of all, y'all let me know how many people have already seen the movie. Give me a one in the chat if you've actually already seen the movie, and I will wait to see the responses on that. Because one thing I'll say, peace of Brother Dawood. First off, the movie was it was very well made for a movie where the budget was obviously not a big budget movie. I thought it was very well made. I thought they captured to a great degree the authenticity. They authentically captured the time, right? As far as the wardrobes and the hairstyles and the culture and what was going on at that time. I thought they captured that well, considering Brother Cam Slam haven't seen it but don't care about sports. Okay, cool. It captured that well, especially again because I'm looking at it's not a big budget movie. I thought that the performances were actually pretty outstanding. From I believe the brother's name is Daniel Kalula. I did not expect him to be as compelling as his portrayal was of Chairman Fred. I thought that the sister that played the chairman's queen, man, I'm trying to think of her African name now. Aquia in Jury. I thought that sister played. Um, I thought she played that role very well. I thought that was excellent. Some of the other supporting cast did an excellent job. It was a very interesting portrayal of Bobby Rush. If you know who what he's come on going on to become, he's now a chairman. I mean, congressman. Excuse me. He's now a congressman. He's been in Congress for I don't actually. I have no idea how long he's been. Um, they did some. They did. There were some interesting things they did with the William O'Neill character. Um, they were real subtle, and if you if you either don't know about COINTELPRO or you didn't catch it, you missed it. Um, they did a pretty good job of capturing Hoover. I thought the Urugu, I believe that's Martin Sheen underneath all that makeup. I thought he did a pretty good job of playing Hoover. Thought he could have been a little more sinister, but other than that, that was the positives. Peace to Lanubian. The negatives, there's a lot of negatives, but the negatives was the portrayal of the men being somewhat incompetent and the women being strong, especially the first half of the movie. And it's interesting because I watched the movie in two halves. So I watched the first half, I digested it. Then I had something to do. Then I went back and watched the second half. I said, wow, okay. So there was some neo feminism thrown in the movie. Um, and if you're not paying attention, you don't see it. There without question, the sisters and the party were strong. But at the same time, the way it was presented made the sisters at the beginning look stronger than the brothers, which they were on the front lines together. And if you talk to any sisters in the party, they'll let you know that. I did like the part where there was a part where I think O'Neill at the beginning was trying to holler at his sister, and Chairman Fred checked him, like, this is not the place or time. Our sisters are not sexual objects, basically. It's what he told him. That I like that because having heard Bobby Seale, that was accurate. Uh, Bobby Seale once talked about he went to, I can't remember what chapter it was, but he went to a chapter. The sisters had cooked all this food for him, and greeting Sister Nina, and then the brothers that sat down to eat first, and he was looking like, "What are y'all doing?" And then because the sisters were actually just standing up against the wall while the brothers were eating, and Chairman uh, and Bobby Seale, he corrected that, and told them that we all in the fight together. The sisters eat when the brothers eat, or first. I can't even remember which one it was, but I do remember that. And I can't remember what chapter it was, but I remember hearing them speak about that. So that little thing, that little nuance thing, having that in there showed that they did their research. Um, you got ripped off, said wasn't interested in watching it because I'm tired of them wanting to show our story only when they corrupt the history and profit off. Right. Okay. But I had to watch it to see what they were putting out to the people. Another thing, well, let's go with the whole premise, because I was talking to Brother Genie. We was talking about how do you even get to this point with the premise. Straight Black Pride, Brother Dessalines, good to see you here. Um, Lord Vale says William O'Neill was acting real thirsty in that scene. Yeah, he was. Yeah. Um, that okay. So here's the interesting thing, because I my first thought when I heard the title was, yeah, thank you, Sister Fonessa. Smash the like button as you come in. you press the like button, or as I like to say, ring the doorbell when you enter the building. Um, the concept itself, like when I first saw it, and somebody was like, "Hey, they're gonna make a Fred Hampton movie," I was like, "Oh, really? A Fred Hampton movie? Really?" And then I saw the title, and the title is Judas and the Black Messiah. Immediately, my mind was like, "Oh no, this is not a Fred Hampton movie. This is a William O'Neill movie." But I still had to see the movie to see how it was presented. And I was talking to Brother Genie, and I was like, when you change the perspective on who the protagonist is, then you change the entire mindset of how you see the movie, right? So check this out. If we make a Fred Hampton movie, right? One of the things that you'll have to do is you'll have to show more of Fred Hampton in the movie. There was not a lot of Fred Hampton. He didn't get a lot of actual screen time in the movie if you watch the movie, right? So if you make a Fred Hampton movie and it's centered around Fred Hampton, you get to, because he only lived to be 21 years old, so you get to see how he grew up, who were his influences, how did he join the party, right? Um, what made him reach out to the gangs, like what gave him that idea, all these types of things, what formed his political philosophy and made him um attracted to the party, right? I remember I was talking to Brother Jenny. He said he was talking to somebody from Chicago, and they told him that Dr. Bobby E. Wright had been one of Fred Hampton's teachers. I had never heard that until a few years ago, but it gave me a completely different perspective about um, who helped create or influence Chairman Fred, right? Knowing that because I'm familiar with Dr. Bobby E. Wright's work. So I was like, oh, okay. I knew they were both from Chicago, but the idea of them crossing paths and the idea of Dr. Bobby E. Wright teaching them never crossed my mind, right? So if you center it around Fred Hampton, then all these things have to be put into the movie, right? And then if you sit it around the chairman, you have to put in all of the positive things that the Panthers were doing. And then you have to then show the background. So you have to show Bobby Seale. You have to show Huey P. Newton. And then it becomes a Panther centric movie, right? But the way it was presented in the film, right? The film is about William O'Neill, and then the Panthers are the backdrop to his story, right? Changes the complete perspective of the movie. Because what happens in the movie? When he's the protagonist, like check this out. When he's the protagonist, right? If I make the movie from Fred Hampton's point of view, the times where Fred Hampton, like when you know Fred Hampton can ready to go to jail, or you know that they're gonna shoot up the Panther office, or you know some other incident where the chairman's in danger, your adrenaline and your anxiety builds up when the chairman's in danger, right? And that causes you to empathize with the chairman. But what did they do? They inverted it, right? And made O'Neill the protagonist. So when is the for those that seen it, when are the parts of the movie where you start to get a little bit of anxiety? So they start off with, in essence, an action scene of him trying to steal a car, right? Then you get to a point where they're having a meeting with the gang, trying to form a coalition with the gang. And one of the members of the gang recognizes O'Neill. So your anxiety goes up at that point because you're like, yo, are they gonna peep him? oh, yo, he know that's him. Yo, I wonder what's gonna happen. Now, you know what's gonna happen if you know the history, right? But when you get caught up in the story, it builds up your anxiety, and you find yourself rooting for the traitor, right? Because if he gets caught and they take him outside and kill him, the movie's over. So by centering it on O'Neill, they automatically make you sympathetic to him, and they do it by starting off by putting him in danger. You see how that works? You see the psychology of it? That's how deep it is. By centering it on him, it changes your whole perspective on the entire situation, right? And then in the grand scheme of things, what does it do? Later on, right? They would show him um, you know, saying he went out and show him like he was conflicted and these types of things. But remember, this man lived until, let's see, I had knowledge when he was on Eyes on the Prize, and I think that came out in 1990. Well, Eyes on the Prize 2. I think that came out in 19 either 89 or 1990. I already had knowledge. That's where I learned. That's where I learned about him, actually. Right? So from 69, December 69 to 1990, 21 years, he lived. And then they tell you, right, that he continued in the party. They don't show you him in the party helping to destroy other chapters and whatnot. They don't show it to you, right? They show you Fred Hampton and then they put it up on the screen. Because if they show it to you, then you realize he couldn't have been conflicted, because if you was conflicted, why would you continue to doing the dirty work of the FBI? You see how they did it? So you're totally, because they show him crying and looking at the chairman and, like, oh my God, I know he gonna die and I don't know what to do and this and that. And then he walks away and he gets in his car and the raid happens and he's not there. They make it seem like in the movie, like he had no other choice but to comply, right? Because they had showed the part earlier where Alex Rackley had got killed, and Alex Rackley had got fingered as a snitch by the actual snitch that was working for the FBI. So they knew it was a snitch. So the dude that was a snitch pointed at somebody else, and they helped to kill somebody else to cover his own tracks in Connecticut, I believe, in New Haven, if I'm not mistaken. So they put that up to show you it did two things. One, it made the Panthers look incompetent, right? It made them look like murderers. And then they put the murder not on the crackers who's paying the snitch, but on the snitch. So on one aspect, they make you look sympathetically at the traitor, like, oh, they can't, oh, they don't have a choice. But then the destruction of the entire organization and destruction of our organizations in general, right? They never really place it on a European, even though you see the European pulling the strings, but they never put them fully in focus. So when black people that don't know come out of this movie, what are they gonna say? See, it's always other black people. If it wasn't for other black people, we'd be able to do this. If it wasn't for other black people, and so you don't come out of the movie hating Urugu and saying Urugu murdered him, even though they showed you Urugu murdering him. Well, they didn't show it to you, but they showed it from the sister's perspective, where she comes out, they drag her out, and then they go into the room and she hears the shots, which is how she had described it. I heard her describe it before, right? But the average person, Brother Lloyd Bell said he didn't feel bad for O'Neal. Yeah, because you know, but the average Negro doesn't know. And so they're going to play on the emotions of the average Negro, and they're going to come out of the movie mad or sympathetic for the Negro with absolutely no focus on Urugu whatsoever. Not even on the pig. Right? That's what's deep. And then Brother Jenny brought some to my attention. He was like, you know what? You also got to think about it too, because of what's going on in the country, right? With the whole hat and Anglo situation. This is another tool to get us riled up because they didn't show anybody being hats. They just showed white cops and FBI. So when we see it, we're like, man, the police are a problem, which the police have police been a problem, no question, right? But we'll never look beyond that to see who's behind the police, who funds the police, who funds the intelligence apparatus. The new intelligence apparatus is the social media. That's the new intelligence apparatus. They don't have to send in the spies now. You go on social media, you see all the distrust, all the hatred amongst black people, or the whole gender war. That's on Twitter and what is this? YouTube. Every time I click it on. That's the new way of causing discord in our community. Because if you go back, right? Remember when they had it was deep because they showed it, but they didn't show it, and this was crazy, right? Remember the Panthers had the meeting with the Crowns, right? And they had the meeting with the Crowns, and the brother from the Crowns pulls out the flyer and says, "Is this you?" And it was talking greasy about the Crowns. Now that is a known COINTELPRO methodology using propaganda, right? And they did this all the time. They did wherever the Panthers were, like the Panthers were the biggest victims of this, right? Wherever the Panthers were, they would find greetings to brother Ronnie Williams. Wherever the Panthers were, and whenever the Panthers were trying to make progress and get along with some other group, or at least not have conflict with another group, this is what they would do. They would write up flyers, make it look like the Panthers work, spread it to the other people, right? And then cause conflict between the Panthers and the other people. They did this with us organization out in LA. They did it with the Panthers and the gangs in Chicago. I believe they did it in New York, but I can't remember who the conflict was with. So this was standard operating procedure for as part of COINTELPRO. And Brother Dawood said, I wonder why they didn't mention COINTELPRO. This is why they didn't mention COINTELPRO. Because they didn't want you to focus so much on the government, right? They wanted you to focus on the individual black people, be mad at them and the police, but never look below the surface to get deeper into who is behind what. But they did it so sophisticatedly that if you don't either A, know the history, right? Or and when I say know the history, I mean know the history of COINTELPRO. Or you either have to know the history or you have to have some knowledge where you're going in looking for something beneath the surface beyond just the entertainment. And another thing that was deep too, how they did this, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, hold up. This is crazy. I don't know if y'all noticed this. Every time the chairman went into a dangerous situation, right? He would tell his soldiers to not bring their guns. Now, I've never heard anyone say that this is how Chairman Fred operated. Never heard anyone say this. Now, I could be wrong, right? I could have missed it. I could have missed it for 30 years. I'm not saying that's impossible. I'm not saying I'm not from Chicago, wasn't born in Chicago. Right? Wasn't in the Panthers, wasn't alive when the Panthers started. But I've been around people. I've been around people who are Panthers from here, uh, Philly, and the West Coast. Again, I've never heard anybody say that. I know it's not standard Panther procedure. And the reason I know it's not standard Panther procedure, because when Huey P. Newton met with Minister Farrakhan, when Minister Farrakhan was the national minister when he was young, and I believe 72, the Panthers were armed when the nation came to meet with the Panthers. So it's not standard. It was not standard operating procedure. Whether the chairman did that specifically, I don't know. But to highlight it made it look like, right? You got to really look at it. It made it look like Chairman Fred wasn't serious. And then what is one of the other things they did at the end, right? This is what is deep, because they didn't tell you what they were doing when they did it. This is so deep. Remember the part where he O'Neill brought the C4, right? And it was the chairman and Bobby Rush. And he was like, man, I got this C4. This is enough C4 to blow up City Hall. BB-48, man. He's like, yeah, it's enough to blow up City Hall. And the chairman was like, if we bomb City Hall, they're gonna come down here and bomb us. And then O'Neill goes off and was like, man, I thought you said, man, that if we kill all of them and blah, 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 blah. And I thought you said you was ready to die. Yeah, and all that stuff, right? It made the way they presented it, made it look like Chairman Fred wasn't serious, even though he just did a bid, right? Then later on, they show O'Neill taking off the wire, but they don't explain it. So if you're not paying attention, you just miss it. That was again standard agent provocateur behavior, but they did not explicitly show you what it was. So it made it look like, if you're not paying attention, it made it look like the chairman was scared and that the traitor was serious. Now, those of you who are here, because I know most of the people here have studied, you saw right through it. The masses of our people who see it did not see right through it. I can guarantee it. Because he pulls off the wire in the car so casually that you don't even realize what it is. Unless you watch, unless you know about those situations, or you watch a lot of Italian mob movies. That's the only way you'll know. But it was deep the way they presented it, because it would make you get all caught up in the militancy of it and the strength of the movie. It'll make you sympathize with him more than you sympathize with the chairman. So there was a lot of sophisticated psychological attacks in the movie, even though the movie was a good movie. Another part of the movie that I did like them showing black love. I give them that. Showing the what could have been the relationship between the chairman and the sister, and just showing their interaction and showing, and this part was deep too, and the brothers can relate to this. I wanted to make sure I talk about this because the conversation they had was so real. And when I say it was so real, BB-48, man, I'm trying to see who else is in it. Anyway, y'all be able to relate to this. Remember last week I talked about the brother's guide to dating while conscious, right? The conversation that Chairman Fred and his queen, who was Deborah at the time, that they had, right, where they were in the room and she had, I think that was her diary, and he had read it or had looked into it. And then she was like, it's private, and then they start talking. And I can't remember who asked who, but basically they were like, I can't remember if he asked her or she asked him. I think she asked him, did he regret getting her pregnant or something to that effect? And then it was like, well, do you regret, having my baby and all that? And they talked it out. And she was just talking about, how she felt in her situation and bringing a baby into a war zone and things like that. I'm going to be honest. That was the realest part of the film. Because when you do race work, right? That when you do race work and you have a woman, even if she's attracted to you because you do race work, that the essence of who you are as a man, that's what attracts her to you. The danger of what you do is still something that can put up a barrier between you. Now, of course, in that time, is way worse as far as your physical danger that you're in doing race work at that time, because they were being hunted. They were literally in a war. She was talking about bringing up a baby in a war zone. They were in a physical war with the cops. But don't think that just because you're not necessarily getting shot down for being straight, black, and proud, don't think that in the mind of the woman, she doesn't see the danger in you doing what you're doing. And the part I found interesting that they left off is they never showed, and again, the movie was not about the chairman, so that's why it happened. They never showed his interaction with his parents and what they felt. Because again, this is a 20, 21-year-old man. So that would have been an interesting aspect to see, because these types of things, they don't just affect your woman, they affect your family. If you have a mother and you doing race work, your mother worries about you. My mother knows, because she had this discussion with my grandmother. I was sitting there. She knows that the Bureau, more than likely, actually 100%, has at least one dossier on me. And they discussed it. Right? So that was the realest part of the movie, the most authentic part. And that was probably came directly from the sister herself. She probably put that scene in and let them know the type of conversations that they had privately. Brother Dawood said, but Brother Hampton was too smart to fall into the FBI trap of being classified as a terrorist group. Panthers were about the defense of black people at all costs. Indeed. And what's interesting, it was funny because they put terrorists in the newspaper, and I don't even think that was actually a term that was regularly used at that time. But it's nitpicking. I'm not 100% sure, but it was interesting that they would use that term in the newspaper when I don't think that term was read. It wasn't really being used like that, I believe, until the 70s, when the stuff in the Middle East started popping off. And Lord Bell says, I just looked up one of the screenwriters, and it's a small hat, shake my head. That's why the movie was off at certain scenes. Indeed, yeah, I had looked it up too, and I saw one of the screenwriters, and it was interesting because he didn't have very many credits to his name, the one I saw. So I just found it very peculiar to have that type of person help you with a film screenplay when that did not appear to be his forte. But again, what I believe happened, and I have no way of knowing this because I wasn't in the room, but what I believe happened is that when the idea for the film was pitched, I believe that there were advisors who who advised them to make it a certain way, to make it more palatable, excuse me, so that it could get wide release and financial backing in Hollywood. So I believe that's how you ended up with Judas and the Black Messiah, as opposed to the Fred Hampton story. And BB48 man says, please watch Jared Ball's interview with Deruba Ben Wahad on the film. Wahad admits that part of the reason this film was made was due to the Panthers' support of gay rights. Interesting. And that's something that really didn't come about until very late in the Panthers' existence. In the 60s, in basically most of the 60s into the 70s, that wasn't even something that they supported. And that was something that ended up being supported mostly from the West Coast. And BB48 man knows, other people may not know. There became some ideological differences in the different chapters of the party at the time, which, I mean, it happens when you're trying to organize thousands of people. You're talking about people who, when they started this in the mid 20s at the earliest, most of the people, this is what's interesting. The same way that Vietnam took a lot of young people who were, the average age, I think, was like 19 or 20, is the same way that the Panthers recruited a lot of young people who were basically in their college years. And so the ideology of the Panther movement was constantly in flux because they were literally learning as they went. And there wasn't a lot of, so they didn't have a blueprint to go on. Like, much of the Garvey movement had been buried and really wasn't resurrected to Dr. Tony Martin did his Race First book. Then some other people did. So they were going with what they had at the time. And that's how you end up with, some of the things that ended up being part of the party platform that was not originally part of the platform. But I will check out that interview because brother Deruba Ben Wahad was there as he grew up as a child. Let's see. Lord Bell says, I didn't agree with the Rainbow Coalition, and why didn't any of the Rainbow Coalition come to aid the Panthers during the shootouts and etc. One thing I know is that the chairman did try to organize a mass of people, and the Panthers had taken their analysis was a class analysis, right? So, I mean, there was a time where they were selling Chairman Mao's book to raise money, and their political ideologies, especially coming out of the West Coast, leaned more toward a socialist analysis of the situation with Black people. So if you do a class analysis as opposed to a race-based analysis, and you don't have a book like The Destruction of Black Civilization that's already been written while you're doing the work, then that's how you can come to some of the conclusions that you come to, and you end up doing some of the things you're doing and end up seeking some of the alliances that you end up seeking, right? Now, what's interesting is that made them more of a threat at that time because the establishment saw because the establishment was really trying to make sure that young people kept fighting in that Vietnam War. And if young people didn't, then the war was going to be lost. Now, history shows us that they lost the war anyway, so it didn't really matter. But that was one of the reasons why they were pushing so hard, because you're in that quote unquote communist era and that whole Cold War thing, and you have Vietnam going on. So you're fighting overseas while a war is brewing and you're fighting in your own country. And no matter how powerful a country is, you can't sustain and win both of those wars. And history goes to show that they just lost the Vietnam War. They just won the war to maintain America and maintain um, the hegemony here, but they lost the war to maintain it overseas because of the unrest that was here. So no one ever says it, but yeah, if it wasn't, wasn't for black people, America may have won that. But because of the uprisings, because of the rebellions, because of our striving for liberation, it caused so much upheaval that they had to pick which war you're gonna win. And Hoover was, you know, determined that the war he was gonna win was the war primarily against black people and other quote unquote radical leftist elements, right? But all of those things were really organized around, and the energy was from young black people, which is why you had the whole Kerner Commission report on young black males, which is how you end up with the whole the beginning of the heroin situation attacking places like New York, which eventually set up the whole crack era, mass incarceration, feminization, so forth and so on. So literally, is all of these attacks are really all connected, but we don't see them that way unless you take a step back and view the history, and then you can see the attacks one after another. And the fact of the matter is, the existence of Chairman Fred, Minister of Defense, Huey P. Newton, Chairman Bobby Seale, and people like that who are doing what they're doing, organizing and resisting and taking people who have no hope and giving them hope, taking young people that have no purpose and giving them a purpose. The fact that black people was producing that number of people in mass from a time where they had just murdered Malcolm X in 65. A year and a half later, the Panthers spring up in 66. So where you killed one man, now you have to deal with a generation of people who are like-minded and younger and have less to lose. And brother, you got ripped off said they need to destroy the Panthers because had the Panthers been around during the crack epidemic, I think the situation would have played out differently. Oh, no question. Because one of the things that happened is, and you talk to West Coast brothers, the remnants of the Panthers and the young people that had saw the Panthers, they did not, they got the strength and the militancy, but they did not get the political education and organization, because when the Panthers were being taken off the scene and they were coming up, that's the whole foundation of the whole gang culture comes from. Because some of the gangs initially on the West Coast were formed to protect the communities from the racist attack of the Europeans that came from across the railroad track and would beat up white people. So yeah, so the foundation of the gangs was political, but the political education and things they needed to continue to organize in that Panther mode was taken away when the Panthers were taken off the scene. Lord Bell says, do you remember the reaction that the white FBI agent had when he found out that the FBI had more agents in Chicago besides William O'Neill? I want to know the names of those agents. And yeah, see, okay, that leads us to the next thing, and we'll come back to the movie, because it's deep that you just actually brought that up. Was it yesterday, 2 days ago? I can't remember, but anyway, speaking of what you're saying, the Malcolm X situation, right? Now, those who know, when Malcolm X was murdered, the FBI was largely thought to be involved for years, and then we found out that there was a NYPD what they call it what they call it squad, NYPD squad, right? Bureau of Secret Services boss that was assigned to quote unquote civil rights groups and radical groups to spy on them, to infiltrate them, and things like that. So they made the announcement yesterday that another FBI agent, not the one that I knew about, but some other guy, had written a deathbed confession and saying that he was the one that helped set up Malcolm's security team so that they were in jail, so that they wouldn't be there to do check posts on the day that the assassination took place. So just like you're saying, who are these other people? We now know that in the murder of Malcolm X, it wasn't just the man that was in charge of his security who was part of Boss, but there were other people who we never heard of who were in on the murder of Malcolm X. And the same way that the FBI and local law enforcement worked together to murder Malcolm X is the same way that they worked together to murder Fred Hampton. And it is interesting because I'm trying to figure out, why are they doing this now, and why? Well, I know why. They're always spotlighting the black collaborators. They're always spotlighting the traitors, but they're never spotlighting the government, because the traitors were traitors because they were paid to be traitors. All the traitors got something out of it. Peace and black power to the war report. But none of the traitors just, from what we know, none of the traitors just walked in and volunteered. Right? All of the traitors were given the opportunity, and they made the choice without question, and should have been dealt with without question. But without the impetus from the government, none of the traitors would have been traitors. They just would have been self-hating Negroes. We got plenty of self-hating Negroes now, but that doesn't mean that they are necessarily actively seeking to destroy our little tiny movements that we have now. But the reality of the situation is they don't have to, because we don't have anything that's a threat to the European at this moment. And this was deep. This is going to make it even harder to organize, because this film is going to sow even more distrust amongst black people. Right? Because there's no way that if you're doing race work, you can see this movie and think to yourself, and not think to yourself, man, anybody could be an agent. Because the way they made this film, he was acting suspicious at different times. But I doubt very seriously. I think they had to do that for dramatic effect. I doubt very seriously. I looked at William O'Neill. I looked at his interview. I have no doubt that this dude was as smooth and as composed and as believable as any person we can think of. I believe he was a low down dude from the beginning and had the ability to lie, and didn't feel, if you look at his interview, right, that was done, I guess it was 89 or 90, there was nothing that gave you, and they say he committed suicide, which I'm not even sure about that, to be honest. But there was nothing in that gave you a feeling of remorse. I do remember him talking about um how crazy it was and how he felt because he was still part of the party, and how it was that they had he when he had to go into the house and you know pretend to be devastated about what happened. And he said he was angry, but he couldn't show it because he was angry at himself for allowing that to happen. And I remember him saying that when he gave him the information, he didn't think that they would kill the chairman, which is kind of different from how they showed it in the film. But I never believed that because I'm like, why did you think that they had, um, what did you think they were going to do with the plans? Like, the worst come to worst, right? If you really love the chairman and you find yourself in this situation and you see the people saying, hey, maybe you need to get out of here, because they showed him facing the case or whatever. The thing, if you had any, a prickling of your conscience at that time, you would have been like, hey, chairman, look, I got word. I was talking to this street dude, and he was telling me that the pigs had rolled up on him, and they asked him for information on us. I think the pigs is gonna come in and roll on us tonight. Chairman, you got to get out of here. At least don't be at the house. Right? You would have to, if you had any inkling of conscience, if you had any thought, damn, they might kill this man. I love this brother. Or because when you work with people and you get in situations where you don't know what happened, there's a certain bond that's created, right? If you ever been in situations where, we had a situation where, it was obvious that we were being spied upon because our security went and saw the people, and then the people went and disappeared. That, right. They were so-called working on something, and then when we went back out there, they wasn't working on it no more. They were in some type of utility truck. So that stuff that you see with the government spying, yeah, that stuff is real, right? It's real. But when you're in a situation, when you're working with people, and it's a situation where, hey, man, we might have to fight these dudes, or we don't know what these cops might do. We out in the middle of nowhere, things like that. It's a certain bond built for you to, the type of low down individual you have to be to go through those experiences with these people, and you still sell the man out. Man, listen. Lord Bell says William O'Neill was eating steak dinners wearing zoot suits. He didn't give a damn about Chairman Fred. Well, it was obvious because he wrote the plans out. And Cindy Ashby says probably sitting on an island with Epstein and every agent trader that ever existed. It's like their retirement island the government sets up with a pension fund. I'm not sure black people get that pension fund. And wait a minute, Lord Bell has something else. Hold on, let me go back. Only black people who do documentaries will expose the agents in the killing of Malcolm X. For example, the Malcolm X documentary on Netflix, a black man interviewed whites and blacks who were agents. I still haven't seen that. I had cut off my Netflix when the whole cuties thing came about, so I had to get somebody else's. And Dawood says one of the discoveries of COINTELPRO was that the FBI had agreements with local police and governments to not be listed in any prosecutions, investigations, or court cases. Right. Yeah. It was they were all in on the operation. And Brother Patrick said that is why we need a code of conduct more than we need movements. A code can be infiltrated, but organizations are infiltrated all the time. Well, the problem with the code is it has to be enforced. Black people are never going to adhere to a code when they have to eat, when white people control who eats and who doesn't. You know what I'm saying? And so in order for that to happen, because here's a perfect example of that, because people never talk about this, right? When the boycotts back in the 60s were done, the belief is, or the way it's presented, is that everybody agreed that we should boycott this store or this bank or whatever the case may be, right? And it was, and then everybody agreed because everybody, we all black, we gonna stick together. That is not what happened. If you read what's the book? We Will Shoot Back. They had this is how deep. They had to have a spy network and they had to have enforcers to keep people from shopping at certain places that they were boycotting. So that's why the boycotts were local and not national, right? Because when they're local, then you can tell who's going to who, right? That because again, it's a different time. The South, smaller communities. Everybody knows everybody, right? And so you know when you see somebody walking into the store, and you know where they live, and you can go and send code enforcement to go talk to them. And Lord Vale says, one more thing, don't forget how the white agent was trying to say that the Black Panthers were tantamount to the KKK. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, brother. I almost forgot about that. And that's interesting because you hear people say that. And I think that message was sent to the Europeans and excuse me, to the Negroes who are sympathetic to Europeans. I think that was for them. And Sister Farnessa says, and we will have to use code enforcers again. Indeed. Yeah, gotta have enforcement, Same way that you're not parked in the right place. People come out, write you a ticket, or code enforcement. Gotta have code enforcement. That's why when Dr. Collins talked about black law for all black people, you're gonna have black law, then you actually have to have black law enforcement. Whether that can be done and sustainable in modern America is something that I currently struggle with. To just be completely honest, because I look at the landscape, I look at the conditions of our people, and we're so integrated. We're being slowly absorbed by these people, and a lot of our people don't have an identity. A lot of our people, not only do they have a desire to not be black, but now the European has opened the gates to absorb those people into their gene pool, and then 2 or 3 generations, your blackness just disappears. I can barely watch the NBA right now because there's so many people running around um, who I don't know, what they are, to be honest, just, got a lot of brothers that may be black, may just be light skinned, maybe mixed, maybe 1/4 black. I don't know who they are, you know. It's hard to watch because it's like, where the brothers at? You look at some teams, they don't have any black people. It was so funny. The local team, the Washington team, they've been gentrified just like the city's been gentrified. Like literally half the team's Caucasian. I don't think they have any mixed people, but it's like half the team's Caucasian. It's an NBA team. How you gonna root for that? You know. But yeah. The movie, and the bad part is, the movie's done so well. It's done so well, and the things in it are done so sophisticatedly that the average person will not see any of the things that I talked about. You just can't. You miss it, and you'll just absorb it, and then go into your subconscious, and it causes more black distrust, more black self-hatred, and there's a certain fatalism to it, right? Where they don't show the the birth of. See, this was how I would have did it, right? This this is how I would have did it. The ending. I would have showed William O'Neill killing himself, and I would have showed the sister giving birth to Fred Hampton Jr. and showed that even in physical death, his rebirth had taken place right beyond his physical death, and that his spirit continued, right? And then that would have been uplifting to the people as they saw it. But they didn't show it like that. They just gave you some stuff on a black screen. And then they did show a picture of his queen and his son, um, Fred Hampton Jr. But it didn't have the same effect. Lord Vale says most blacks don't know their history, teach their kids the reason to date black or stay away from stores, non-black nail salons that hate you. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, we've really like I said, we've been absorbed in this culture and we're really losing our identity. And Magus Zeal says NFL is soon to follow. Yeah, the NFL, I mean, I was actually surprised that the great mulatto didn't win another Super Bowl, but I guess they wanted to. I guess they just wanted to show that Captain America is superior to even the great mulatto. So that was just another message that let Europeans know that they're still in control. Um, you know, but yeah, that's how I saw the movie. That's the things I saw in the movie. Um, and I'll probably watch it again. Like I said, I just finished watching it probably 40 minutes before I came on. And so it was fresh in my mind. And I knew they were going to do some things. I didn't know fully what they were going to do. It was somewhat how I thought it was. Um, I was expecting some open. The one thing I didn't see, I was expecting overt, um, some overt advocacy of homosexuality. I didn't see that. Um, I also was expecting. Well, I mean, we got the interracialism. It was put up. It was put up there, and making it, making the chairman appear nonviolent in a in an organization that's known for self defense. I mean, that was one of the neatest tricks that I've seen. I never saw that coming. How they did that, but they kept showing him putting away his guns, and it made him almost look like they almost turned a revolutionary into Martin Luther King. 797 says, "Hey, speaking about many of us not knowing our history, does anyone remember the name of the sister author of the children's books?" You mean the children's books that Jenny used to sell on Warner Horizon? That sister was author Angela Freeman. Okay, Magazine got that covered. And Dawood says, yes, American society has cherry picked black culture and exalted the negative stereotypes. Oh yeah, absolutely, without question. That's all hip hop is now. Is negative stereotypes and uh, man, homosexuality and feminism and whoredom and just yeah. I mean that's literally all hip hop is now. Everything that may have been masculine, everything that was positive, everything that was knowledgeable, everything that was creative, because everybody sounds the same to me. I can't pick out one person from another. But I understand I'm not the target audience. All of that has been removed. Um, the same way that the revolutionary spirit of the Panthers was removed from the gangs, and they just inherited the militancy and turned that on each other. To the point now that there are whole parts of California that used to be black that are now Hispanic. So I mean, it's one of those things we have to learn from our mistakes. But if you don't accept your identity, right? If you accept the identity that's given to you, then yeah, you can't resist anything. You just open up to attack. And our children aren't taught, they aren't given an identity, because one of the things that happens, and I was talking to a couple of sisters and then looking at some other stuff, and it kind of made me realize this. I never realized one of the reasons why we have a gender war, and I'm taking a left turn, but one of the reasons we have a gender war, because I never knew how many sisters grew up not only without their father, but without a grandfather in the house, any uncles that they're close to, any cousins that are a little bit older, like nothing. So it's the imbalance that, the removal of men from families and the breakdown of families and the imbalance that sisters get is why a lot of times you talk to sisters, they don't, like, when you talk to them and they hear you talk, it's almost like they never heard, they never really talked to a man before. Or let me correct myself. It's like they've never listened to a man before. And it's real interesting how that works. Um, and they could have went, if they had did this film correctly, they could have really showed how that camaraderie and that interaction between the brothers and the sisters in the Panther, and the symbiosis, right? The symbiotic relationship between the brothers and sisters was, because that was really the strength of the party. The strength of the party was that the the love that the brothers and sisters had for each other was so strong that it allowed them to, I mean, they were resisting a full on assault, right? Brothers would get locked up, sisters would have fundraisers. Sisters would get locked up, brothers were breaking her out of jail, right? Like, people don't understand that brothers went into the jail and got Asada Shakur out the jail and took her and hid her for years before she got to Cuba. Nobody ever talks about the black men who risk their lives. Who breaks in jail nowadays and carried her out the jail? Some of the changes in how the corrections departments do some of their security and stuff like that came because brothers broke Asad Shakur out the jail. You see what I'm saying? No one ever talks about that. No one ever talks about how sisters would just do whatever they could to raise money to free Huey and free Bobby and because free Chairman Fred, because they were locking them up fast as they could get them out, get a lawyer and get them out. They were locking up a different leader in a different chapter, right? They man, what is this name? So Erica Huggins and oh man, what's the brother's name? Man, I can't even think of the brother's name. The brother, and he got murdered. Him and that sister drove all the way from the East Coast together all the way to the West Coast to join the party. Right? And it's so funny because when you talk to people that was in the party that knew them, she was like this tall model looking sister. And he was like a shorter brother. And then people look at him and they looked at him like, hey, they look mismatched. And they was completely in love with each other. And completely in love with the party. And completely in love with being a Panther and being a revolutionary. And he gave his life. And she loved him in life and through his return to the ancestors. Now, see, I would love to see a movie on the Panthers focusing on that, but we won't see that part because That's not part of the agenda. But that's a part that now people try to corrupt and say that the Panthers was misogynist and this and this and that and blah 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 blah. But if you talk to the Panther women, not what's her name, not Angela Davis, who was not a Panther woman, she was not part of the movement. But you talk to sisters that were in the movement, they tell the story, right? And that's why it's so important for us to get the stories from the sources while they are here. Brother Lord Bell said Shaka Khan was even a Panther. Right. Right. And so, again, the reason why we have to, those that know have to watch the movies, because we have to break down the movies for those that don't. And we have to watch it with a critical eye, and we have to continue to study. And sometimes you have to, even I've had to go and break out the old books that I read 15, 20, 25 years ago, right? Haven't read them in 5 years, 10 years sometimes. And like, hold up, let me check that. Hold up, let me check that, right? I got Seize the Time by Bobby Seale right here, and Huey P. Newton's Revolutionary Suicide right here, right beside me. Because I wanted part of their spirit here while I'm speaking on these events, right? To get some of that revolutionary spirit, some of that revolutionary zeal, and to tell the story as best I know it and correct the things I saw and expose the flaws that I saw in the movie. And what's deep is I don't necessarily think that the people, at least not in this case, I don't think that, and I could be wrong, I could be completely wrong. I don't think that the brother that made the movie necessarily set out to, with nefarious intent. I think that, to be part of that Hollywood scene, the story has to be told in a certain way. And I think that's how you end up with what you end up with. You end up going from the Fred Hampton story to the William O'Neill story. Lord Bell said, why wasn't Fred Hampton Jr. and his mom paid anything? I don't know. I don't know what arrangement they made. I don't know what type of financial arrangement they made where maybe they see some type of residuals. I have no idea, brother. And then for all I know, that could be a thing. It could be a thing where that's why they made it about William O'Neill, so they didn't have to pay the chairman's family. I really don't know. I don't know how that works. Literally, that's the only thing I can think of. Because nobody's gonna really. Oh, maybe they will. You never know nowadays. But I was going to say nobody's really gonna run out and claim, "Hey, man, I'm William O'Neill's son. Man, make sure you pay me $10." Not publicly, I would think, but you never know. Maybe they'll have his son or whatever do an interview now that this thing is out public. You never know nowadays how people think. Things that we think are shameful and you wouldn't want to be connected with and are just disgraceful. People don't have that feeling. So, my question is: has anybody talked to someone that's seen it that is not conscious, and what did they think about the movie? And you got ripped off says, nah, DC, he did it purposefully, just like Regina King doing One Night in Miami. Regina is now set to play Shirley Chisholm in a biopic. Oh, okay. So she got her money. I mean, yeah. Okay. Yeah, I still haven't seen that One Night in Miami. I heard that the dude that played Malcolm X was extremely weak. But the thing about that was totally fictional, right? If I'm not mistaken, you got ripped off. And it says the new acceptance is shaming our story for Hollywood prestige. Yeah. And Lord Bell says, I know one thing, Elijah Muhammad movie will never be made. They, hmm, you know, that is so interesting. They may wait. They probably wait till Farrakhan out here to make that. That's what they probably do. Because you can make a Elijah Muhammad nation look real bad with depending on the perspective of that movie. You can make them look really bad, right? Really bad. Like goodness, scary how I mean you can make them the villain. You can make black people hate them forever. You know, depending on how you tell the story. Because you can leave out all the positive parts. You can leave out the people that they got off drugs and sisters that they got off the corner and all that. You can minimize that and just put up all their flaws, including Elijah Muhammad's flaws. You can do that easy, to be honest. You know, but I don't think they'd do it while Farrakhan is here, because yeah, you know, I don't think they do it. Dawood says they need a real Marcus Garvey movie. Yeah, now that's the movie you're not gonna see. You're not gonna see the Marcus Garvey movie because if they made it's number one, it's hard to make Marcus Garvey look bad. I mean, there are some things because nobody's perfect, but that will point us directly to the continent and point the people in the continent directly to us. And because of Memorandum 46, I doubt they ever make a Marcus Garvey movie. It's too big of a risk. It's like you have to be real sophisticated to make that movie, and people still be Negroes after they see it. Lord Bell says the people I know are not supporting the movie because the guy that played Fred Hampton made some crazy comments. Oh, really? What did he say? I missed that. Um, and you got ripped off. Says, oh, One Night in Miami is a fictional story based on what ifs. Oh, okay, right. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, Louisville. What? Tell me what comments. I thought you were gonna say that people didn't um support the movie because the brother is not from here. Which I had. I'm not gonna lie. I had my um I had my doubts. Like really had my doubts of him playing the chairman. But I gotta give him credit. He he did an excellent job. He did an excellent job playing the chairman. I did not see that coming at all. Let's see. And Dessalines agrees with Lord Bell. And you got ripped off says, give the Marcus Garvey film Adolf's director, and I bet they would destroy the image of Garvey. Man, they'll call it a Garvey movie, and they'll have Du Bois the hero. That's what they'll do. So again, for those that are new, because we had more people than I've seen in a while, you can follow me on Instagram at dc.radical the numeral one, on Twitter at dc underscore radical underscore ONE, and the cash app is $ DC radical one, all one word. And of course, this is the YouTube capital D small c radical one. And don't forget to check out OTW Tube. And very shortly, hopefully, actually, Brother Jenny's supposed to be getting back with me um, either today or tomorrow. We will let you all know the date and place for Dr. Francis Cress Welsing Day celebration. Currently, tentatively scheduled for March 20th, so approximately a month away. And we'll let you know that will be live streamed. I have a lecture already in the can for that. I may add some spice to it. Add some new things because the first time I did it was, I think I think 2 years ago now. So be on the lookout for that. Um, when we know what the venue situation is. I just it. you know how it is. These COVID things, everything is everything is tentative. Some 1 minute seem like they like opening up, and then the next minute it's like, oh no, you can't do this and that. So we're kind of at the mercy of the European because we don't want to put anybody's business in jeopardy. So let's see. We got Mitchell K. Hall says, I have yet to see the movie, but I got a call from my father saying the movie reminded him of myself. Keep in mind, I just found out about him 6 months ago. And he's a Christian Negro. Wait, you just found out about whom 6 months ago? I'm confused by that. And movies are always destructive by Euro. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the small hats invented Hollywood, and they did not invent it to make black people look good. They invented it to make themselves look good. So that's kind of self-explanatory. Uh, oh, just learned he's your wow, wow, wow. Um, that's interesting. And you got ripped off. Said, "Nah." Biden said, "Gather around in large groups, no mask needed." I know Biden didn't say that because he, him, Fauci, and Gates is all in bed together, figuratively speaking. Because we know Mr. Biden likes his bed mates much younger. But anyway, um, Tila Nubia, will there be a live stream? Yeah, that's the plan, and um that's another reason why the venue is important because we want to make sure that the equipment and the Wi-Fi and all that stuff is up to snuff so that we can actually do the live stream this time. And we will be doing, and it's even more important now. We will that lecture that I got sitting in the can for that I had for Dr. Collard Day. The plan is to do that around Malcolm X Day, and so we will have footage, excuse me, of William O'Neill, the real William O'Neill, and we will have footage of some other traders. You know, because it fits right along with this theme. Weirdly enough, I wasn't even thinking about the movie when I put the lecture together, but you know, sometimes things fall into place in weird ways. And Lord Bell says we need that Genie interview. I'm working on that. It won't be next week. That much I can tell you. And Brother Patrick says the Marcus Garvey film must be made and it needs to be made by us. Yeah, that in order for that to be done, we're gonna have to finance that. We're gonna have to make it, we're gonna have to finance it. Um, yeah. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure who I would if there's anybody that I know off the top of my head that I trust to make that type of film. If y'all got suggestions, put it in the chat because I don't even know who I would trust to do that. Um, Brother Mitchell says this movie is going to emphasize how important it is to read books and watch lectures from the actual people themselves instead of coming from others' mouths. Um, yeah, and that's another thing they didn't really show. They didn't really show how the Panthers were, how important political education was, and how important study was to the Panthers. That just got thrown out. And yeah, 2 hour movie. Somehow that didn't get in there at all, which was a big part of what they were doing. They were they were big on theory and big on practice. They were big on both. It was a balance. Um, Ronnie Williams says we got to make that. We got to make that movie. They can't. They will have Terry. Oh my goodness. Brother said they will have Terry Crews playing Garvey. Brother. Oh man. You know what? Mm. You know what? I got to take a drink of water on that. Uh, Peace to Brother Igwe Heshima. So that's what's coming up in the works. I don't really have a subject for next week. I do have something to do Sunday. So if I do something next week, it'll probably be Saturday night or Friday. If y'all have a subject that y'all would like me to do a show on next week. Those of you that follow me on Instagram, and Instagram is running along the bottom, hit me up in the DM and let me know. Because you don't know. I know at least I thought I said this. I'm not sure. I thought I had talked about doing just a relationship, um, in essence, a relationship forum. You know, once a month. I mean, not once a month, once a quarter. I think. I think I had talked about that. And 777-9311 said emergency and disaster preparedness. I would have to find somebody that I trust, um, that I feel is an ex is an expert in that. I have somebody. I don't know if I'll try to contact them and see if they would like to come on. I have somebody in mind, um, but I haven't. I talked to him in a while, so I have to see. I have to see. You know, getting that done by getting that done by Saturday. I don't know. Can't promise that, but I put it in the queue. Um, so with that, brothers and sisters, I do have things to do. Thank you all for. Hold up, let me see something. I know a brother who knows the brother that made the use of Hawkins documentary. He would be good to make the Marcus Garvey movie because he's good and pro black. Okay, Lord Vale. Um, did I miss something else? Oh, brother Patrick said let's crowdfund it and get it popping. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah, that would be definitely. Yeah, I got to think about that. See how, because I got to think about that. That I mean, who's left in this family that still is there anybody? I know one of his sons just passed. Yeah, because that's a hard part of getting people from that era that's still alive, or at least the children of that era, so that you can get accurate information and make it as realistic as possible. Sister Vanessa says, a BB48 straight black pride. Brother Desaline says, thank you for another good show, big bro. Appreciate you. You got ripped off says, nothing comes free, people. Freedom is not free. Send in those donations. The Cash App is running along the bottom. $ DC Radical 1, all one word. Anything that you donate will be greatly appreciated. Again, I appreciate you all for all your love, support. If you're not subscribed, subscribe to the channel. I notice people have been subscribing. The channel is growing. The more the channel grows, the more I'll be compelled to put more content on the channel, even though I absolutely, totally, positively hate video editing, but it is a skill that I am going to have to master. So, with that being said, I leave you all in peace with this a BB for Hodier and straight black pride.